A helicopter crashes into the Hudson River. On board are a tourist family from Spain and an American pilot. Lost to the deadly tourist flight. No black box, no distress call, and no survivors. This isn't the first time a tour flight ended in tragedy. So the question is, was this crash just an accident or the tip of an iceberg? Something far more profound, far deadlier. Stay tuned while we try to make sense of the Hudson River tragedy. And as we uncover the chilling truths behind this crash, hit that subscribe button. Because the skies may look peaceful, but they often hide secrets. It was April 10th, 2025, a clear afternoon over New York City. Tourists flocked to the skies, seeking panoramic views of the metropolis. Among them, a family from Spain boarded a helicopter. It's the family of Siemens Spain President Agustin Escobar. He took his wife, Merce Camprubi Montal, and his 3 children for the perfect sightseeing trip. And the pilot? He was an experienced Navy SEAL veteran. The aircraft was a Bell 206 Long Ranger 4 on the 8th trip of the day. What should have been a once-in-a-lifetime experience for them became a wake-up call for an entire nation. So, what went wrong? Let's take a look. At 2:59 p.m., the chopper lifted off from the downtown Manhattan heliport. Just another dot in the constant sky traffic above New York. The Bell 206 was scheduled for a 20-minute aerial tour over the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, and the Empire State. A popular loop. Hundreds of flights like it take off every week. But this one never came back. Minutes ticked by and everything was going smoothly. At 3:08 p.m., the helicopter turned around near the George Washington Bridge before turning south along the New Jersey shoreline. Sometime later, the pilot informs the ATC, air traffic controller, about his decision to return to the helipad to refuel, just as the tragedy was about to strike. At 3:17 p.m. and about 18 minutes into the flight, radio silence. No mayday, no mechanical warning, just gone. Witnesses on the west side reported a sickening sound, metal groaning, and then a spin, a spiral. The helicopter nose-dived into the river, the main cabin upside down. By the time emergency divers reached the scene, it was too late. 6 lives, 1 wreck, 0 answers. So, how did that happen? Experts suggest that the helicopter might have experienced a phenomenon called mast bumping. And what's that, you may ask? It sounds harmless, like a nudge. But in helicopters, it's one of the deadliest mechanical failures you can experience mid-air. Here's what happens. In 2-bladed helicopters like the Bell 206, the rotor system is semi-rigid. That means that it teeters to compensate for changes in airflow. But if the aircraft tilts too aggressively or experiences sudden turbulence, the rotor hub can literally bump into the mast, which is the vertical shaft connecting the rotor blades to the helicopter's engine. Think of it like swinging a ceiling fan too hard on a loose rod. It starts slamming into its own support. That's mast bumping. And when it happens at high speed or low altitude, the rotor blades don't just hit the mast, they shear off, they snap free. The aircraft is no longer a helicopter, it's a falling brick. This usually happens in low-G situations, like a sudden drop or sharp turn. And with tourist helicopters doing quick loops, banking maneuvers, and frequent climbs and dives, the conditions are ripe for disaster. Most pilots are trained to avoid this with careful maneuvering. But if something goes wrong mid-flight, a misjudgment, sudden weather, or mechanical issue, mast bumping can strike in seconds. And in most cases, there's no recovering from it. And that's what seemed to have happened to this particular helicopter. So now that we know what mast bumping is, was that what brought the helicopter down? The answer lies in what little evidence we do have. Remember, there was no black box. These commercial tour helicopters aren't required to have one. And without a mayday, investigators had to rely on witness accounts, radar data, and the wreckage itself. According to early reports from the NTSB and FAA, the main rotor blade had separated mid-air. And that lines up perfectly with mast bumping. But what would cause such a maneuver on a routine tour flight? Was it a pilot error? Sean Johnson wasn't a rookie. He was a Navy SEAL veteran, a decorated pilot with hundreds of hours logged. If anyone knew how to handle a Bell 206, it was him. But even experienced pilots can fall prey to a perfect storm. Fatigue from multiple trips, mechanical wear and tear, or sudden air disturbances from nearby aircraft. The flight path shows the helicopter was turning south, potentially aligning for a scenic view of lower Manhattan. Was it during that turn that the mast bump occurred? We may never know for sure, but the signs are eerily familiar. Because this isn't the first time the Hudson River has seen such horror. You may be familiar with the term "miracle on the Hudson." It's when the famous pilot Chesley "Sully" Sullenberger successfully landed a passenger flight on the river. Everyone survived on that plane, but it doesn't work like that always. In 2009, a tour helicopter collided mid-air with a Piper plane over the Hudson. 9 dead. A flurry of investigations and promises of tighter regulation, but to no avail. And what's worse, the horrors weren't just limited to the Hudson River. In 2018, another Liberty Tour helicopter crashed into the East River. This time, it was a doors-off flight. The passengers were strapped in so tightly that none could escape when the chopper went down. 5 lives were lost in an instant.
Zero Lima Motel, mayday.
Zero Lima Motel, are you okay?
River, engine failure.
Marine 6 does have 1 diver in the water.
Surreal, and next thing we know, it's approaching the water slowly, and then it just completely crashed and then sunk.
And now, 2025. It's the worst possible déjà vu ever. But here's the kicker. This model had known fatigue issues. An FAA bulletin from 2022 had already flagged this exact series, warning of potential component wear in high-frequency commercial use. So the real question is, why was this aircraft still flying? You see, aerial tours over New York? Helicopter tourism is big business, fast, flashy, profitable. Over 65,000 flights take off annually from NYC's 3 heliports. Each seat costs between $200 to $500. And downtown Manhattan? It's become a ground zero for these joyrides. Operators sell the dream, see the skyline, skip the lines, feel the rush. But behind that high-flying glamour is a growing pile of safety complaints, noise lawsuits, and regulatory blind spots. With sky traffic increasing and safety standards largely self-policed, cracks begin to show. Critics say the FAA regulations haven't kept up. That helicopter maintenance is rushed to keep the flights going, and that pilots are overworked, doing up to 12 trips a day with minimal rest. The people of New York even formed a group called Stop the Chop, which advocates for banning these tours altogether. Yet, the tours continued, and the April 2025 crash was the final blow. New York Helicopter Tours, once one of the most popular aerial operators in Manhattan, shut down operations immediately following the incident. Not out of goodwill, but because they had no choice. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer wasted no time. Within hours of the incident, he urged the Federal Aviation Administration to rescind the company's license permanently. His words were sharp. This isn't just a tragic crash. It's a failure of oversight and a pattern of recklessness. The FAA didn't just agree to review the company's license, it announced a full-scale investigation into its safety record, operational hours, and past maintenance logs. And when you start digging, the past isn't clean. In recent years, multiple NYC-based helicopter operators, including Liberty Helicopters and Fly NY have faced lawsuits from crash victims' families, whistleblowers, and even city officials. In 2018, Fly NY was sued after its Doors Off tour ended in a fatal crash that drowned 5 people strapped into harnesses. Investigators found the harness system had no quick-release mechanism, turning a photo op into a death trap. Other companies have faced class-action lawsuits over misleading safety claims, flying too low over residential areas, and violating city-imposed flight restrictions. And still, these helicopters kept flying. The shutdown of New York helicopter tours might feel like justice. But to critics, it's just one domino in a crooked industry that has survived scandal after scandal. Because when profits soar higher than safety standards, the next tragedy is not a question of if, but when. As the NTSB continues its investigation, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just one crash. It was the latest chapter in a much darker history. Why was this aircraft cleared for so many trips a day? Were their maintenance logs reviewed before takeoff? And most importantly, should these kinds of flights even be legal in a city so densely packed and vulnerable? Until there's accountability, until real change happens. The skies above New York may not just offer breathtaking views. They may carry haunting echoes of negligence, unanswered questions, and preventable death. This was the Hudson River helicopter crash. And this is the story they didn't want you to hear. If you or someone you know is considering an aerial tour, ask questions, ask about safety, check records, because behind every scenic flight, there's a system, and not all of them are built to last. So what do you think? Should there be a ban of these tours? Let us know in the comments below.